Hey guys, this week is chapter 6 of Shields and Butsu. It's the Western churches in the Middle Ages, which is the Roman Catholic Church. He starts off the they start off the chapter with there's no golden age of authentic worship, and so it's a story, and so it reminds us that there isn't highs and lows. We're in a peak right now, and we're the best worship. There's pros and cons from each generation. For modern evangelical churches and the Roman Catholic churches, this Middle Age Eastern Church is very similar in a lot of aspects. Includes the interiorized personal worship, expert-driven. It's popular by culture standards. It's focused on validating moments and methods, and attempted explanations are tightly logical or highly representational of something else. In the worship service, Latin is the official language of the Roman Church, and so the whole service was Latin, except for the sermon and then some small parts in Greek. The word was foreign to most of the hearers, so it gave a distinct difference between the priestly ministry and the observers. So there was no share in the community worship because the hearers couldn't understand the clergy, so it wasn't a communal experience. This great schism happened during this time. It separated the East and the West. This clearly defined there was a Greek church and a Latin church. The Bible was read verbatim in the service. There wasn't any complete Bible altogether in one binding. It would be in various components and were bound separately for their particular liturgical functions. The other texts included the sacramentary, which was a collection of prayers, the antiphonal, which was the song leader's book. It outlined the general direction of the melody, but not specific notes like we would have on our staff. The Pontifical was the bishop's book, which contained parts of the sacramentary that the bishop needed to perform his duties. It was his book. The Breviary was a book that contained everything to pray the daily liturgy of the hours. During this period, the Western churches used the Gothic-style structures for their worship spaces, flying buttresses used to create much higher ceilings. The buildings looked magnificent with stained glass art. The baptistry was included in the building, and also infant baptism became the norm during this time, which made adult baptism lower. Worship happened on a daily basis, and the church year was focused around Lent and the Advent seasons. Baptism was preferred on Easter and the Pentecost, but during the Middle Ages, baptism also happened with conversions of entire peoples and the rise of the infant mortality rate, which was the infant baptism. During this time, in regarding to Eucharist, a lot of changes happened. Symbols became things, verbs became nouns, subjects have become objects, actions have become verbal expressions, reverence became superstition. Ceremony was the ceremony of the Eucharist was once an actual meal. It actually became an object of adoration where there was no meal. Communal celebration is now individual devotion. Mysteries have become mysticism. Symbols of the Eucharist have become dramatic reenactment of the body of Jesus. Universal body of Christ has become localized in the Eucharistic species, and the desire to see God has been replaced by eating the body of Christ. So there's a lot of changes during this time, and there was a lot of downfall to this time period in the Middle Ages, but you can see that the difference between the worship and how it actually kind of reflects, or our worship kind of reflects this worship, and it's interesting to see that the two are so closely related. Thanks for listening.